What is going on, guys? Today I bring you round 2 of Open Figueira da Foz. And as you can see, in this round I got paired up against a very strong player. Actually, the strongest player that I've ever faced, OTB, is Arpandas Jr., a young um, teenager from India, and I am with the elo of 2400. So I was very excited for this game because I just came off a really good result against a very strong player, and I had another chance to play a really strong player, and I was excited. So I had the black pieces, my opponent had the white pieces. He started with e4, and I went for the Sicilian. Yeah, that's the opening that I prepared for this tournament against d4, knight f3, d6, and my opponent goes for the open Sicilian with d4. Takes, knight f6, knight c3, and now I go for knight c6, the classical Sicilian. And my opponent goes for the sharpest response, the Richter-Rauser variation with bishop g5. I was kind of um waiting for this. Like, I kind of prepared this for my opponent because I knew that looking at his games, he always played the open Sicilian, and he really only played bishop g5. But in bishop g5, he had some alternatives. So after e6, he plays queen d3, which is not the most common move. Normally, people play queen d2 is more common, and later on they'll play either f4 or f3. But my opponent goes for queen d3, which is an option that I was aware of, and he had some games in this variation. So after bishop e7, long castles short by me, h4, bishop d7. This is all sort of theory, and he was pretty much blitzing these moves out. I was also pretty much blitzing my own moves out, but now he plays king b1, which is a very rare move that at the time it wasn't a novelty, but it was very rare and actually quite poisonous. Just a simple waiting move. And yeah, like for like for preparing, when I'm preparing chess openings, I use Chessable. I think it's a great platform to learn openings from really strong players. And I was following Sam Shanklin's Chessable course on the classical Sicilian to just prepare overall this opening. And in the this chapter has like the Queen D3 chapter has like 32 variations. I'll put it on the screen. I think it has 32 or 33 variations, and this move King B1 only has one of those 32 variations. Only one variation is dedicated to this King B1 move, and like I just didn't remember my preparation because like it's like one variation at the bottom of the chapter, and you have like I had like what 150 or something like that, or 100 variations to look at for like 4 or 5 hours before the game, and yeah, I just didn't remember King B1, but I knew that um there was that this movie is actually legit and it's actually a good move. And so I was, thinking and thinking, and I just started to like think for a long time. C8. I wanted to play rook c8 because I thought that this was the move, but during the game I just didn't know what to do against knight b5. And actually, this move rook c8 is the correct move. It's the best move in this position, according to Shanklin's analysis. And yeah, but I didn't know what to do about knight db5, and all of a sudden, it looks like I'm gonna lose a pawn here on d6. My first instinct was to kick the knight, of course, with a6, but this fails to just simply knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes. White is just winning here. Uh, Up a pawn and way too much pressure along the d file. So okay, a6 is definitely not a move. I thought about d5, uh, but I just couldn't make this work. What I calculated was that after e takes d5, I would have knight takes on d5, knight takes on d5, e takes on d5, and queen takes on d5. And all of a sudden, if we come material, I'm still down a pawn, and there's still a lot of pressure along this diagonal. So I didn't like this, and this doesn't work. So yeah, I was a little bit uh, worried about knight b5, and when you don't know how to respond to a move, you kind of get discouraged from playing this rook c8 move. Although I just want to point out that after knight b5 is not a good move. My idea with d5 would be good enough if my opponent took on d5. Here, the correct move is actually knight b4, which I completely missed in calculation. And yeah, the point is that I'm attacking the queen. And when the queen moves, let's say the queen moves to d4 to keep pressure along these diagonals and to keep control of this d file. Now I have knight takes on d5, and it's really important to take with this knight, as you'll see. Let me just show. If you take with this knight, after knight takes on d5, let's say knight takes on d5, here there's knight takes on a7, and I'm down a pawn, and it's the rook is attacked, rook a8. I would have to do something like this, but at the end of the day, my opponent can just come back, and because the bishop protects the square, and I'm down a pawn. But if I take with this knight, now the problem is that if my opponent, for example, takes here on d5, I can actually take with a pawn, and this is very good because if my opponent takes here on a7, I have queen a5, and now there's a lot of threats. Like I'm threatening the c2 pawn, I'm threatening to just give out checkmate here, I'm attacking this knight. Let's say, for example, if my opponent just tries to counterattack my knight with a3, I can just take on c2 with the knight. I'm attacking the queen, the rook is protecting the knight. Yeah, because I'm attacking the queen, my opponent doesn't have time to take the rook. So yeah, it's really important to have the knight on b4. But d5 is not really that good of a move, because after d5, my opponent can go queen g3, and like it's not so clear what I should do here. It's not simple at all. If I try to just kick out the knight with a6, my opponent can go knight d6, and yeah, this is like horrible for me. So yeah, the position is very complicated, and actually the refutation of the move knight b5 is knight e5. And yeah, this is a very important move because now I am attacking his queen. Let's say he keeps the queen on the d file with queen d4. Now I can just take this knight, and it doesn't really matter how my opponent takes. Let's say he takes with the knight here. I have a6, and if my opponent tries to win this pawn like this, I can just take. After queen takes, rook takes on d6, I have this beautiful move at the end, knight takes e4. Now I'm attacking the bishop, I'm attacking the rook, and black is absolutely fine, maybe even better. So yeah, it's very complicated. If you don't know exactly these lines, you can end up in huge trouble. Let me just show that bishop takes on b5 is not a problem, just a6 and everything is good. So yeah, you actually need to know a lot to play this type of positions, especially if you're playing against like a really strong player that knows this stuff in and out. So yeah. Okay, I didn't play rook c8. I guess the main move is rook c8, but you can still play knight d4. Although it's actually funny that my opponent had a game in this exact variation with knight takes on d4 later on during the tournament, and he absolutely crushed his opponent, which was like a 2100 player. So yeah, I ended up playing bad move, which was a knight e5. So, you know, I kind of mixed up the order of the things. Knight e5, I knew that this move had to be played sooner or later. And yeah, here is not the correct timing, because after queen g3, there's gonna be a lot of pressure in my position with f4 coming soon. And yeah, the rook on c8 is a huge tempo. And yeah, I need the rook on c8 to start counterplay immediately. Otherwise, I'll just get rolled down the board. So I'm just going to point out that the correct variation that I should have gone for if I knew my theory really well would be rook c8 and knight b3. It's very funny because my opponent, after the game, he told me, "Oh, you were following Sam Shankland's chessable course, right?" And I was like, "Oh my god, how does this guy know?" And I was like, "Yes, how do you know?" I realized by your move order that you were following that course. You know, and he was like, "I don't think Sam Shankland covers King B1, which." Yeah, it's a very tricky move. So yeah, I was expecting you to go rook c8, I would go knight b3, and after something like this and that, I would do this and that. So he was already calculating way ahead. And meanwhile, I was just trying to remember the theory from the course, which is kind of crazy to see the difference between levels. And yeah, this is absolutely insane. The knowledge that these really strong players have. But yeah, the continuation follows something like knight b3. Now I think you go knight e5, and after queen d4 here, the recommendation of Shankland is h6. Bishop takes on f6. Bishop takes on f6. Queen takes on d6. So just sacrificing a pawn here on d6. And now after bishop c6, it just calmly improves his pieces and says that after f3 takes, black gets a good position after g5. And yeah, it says that this position is good for black as compensation, and you probably will be able to draw. So I mean, it's kind of it's very crazy. Like, I mean, I don't really recommend like people of my level playing this type of lines or following these courses to the exact detail, because I mean, it doesn't even matter. Like, even if I got this position against him, I would probably lose. Like, I think 85% chance that I just straight up lose, or 90% chance, because like I'm still down a pawn. I'm playing on compensation, and it's not really obvious what the compensation is besides the bishop pair, So yeah, I mean, this is kind of crazy playing these lines, but it is what it is. You live and learn. But yeah, following all these explanations, I'll go back to what happened in the game. I played 95. He played queen g3, and here I realized that I messed up. I realized that I wasn't following the Shankland recommendation, because all of a sudden I don't remember it being so like scary with f4 coming, h5, and a lot of pressure here alongside my king. But yeah, I just had to think on my own here, and I came up with knight h5 here, attacking the queen. It just simply slides back to h3, and here I tried to play a6, stopping any knight b5s, but I guess this is very slow. I don't know, maybe rook c8 would be more straight to the point here, just immediately trying to create something on the king side. But yeah, I played a slow move a6, which, yeah, it's slow, as I said. It took on e7, which, yeah, I didn't really fully understand why it took on e7 actually. But he took on e7, I took back, and he played g4. So, okay, I guess this was his idea. I played knight f6. If I play knight f4, this knight is just gonna be trapped, because after queen g3 attacking this knight, I have to go knight g6 and h5, and I have no squares for the knight. So yeah, okay, I saw this, so I just went knight f6, and my opponent goes g5. And here I had an option. Do I go knight h5? Do I go knight e8? I ended up going knight h5 because I thought that, at least I'm stopping temporarily the f4 push, and it feels like the knight is blocking at least his pawns and blocking his attack, momentarily. So yeah, he just goes queen e3. I guess he had more time on the clock than me. Um, of course, but he still spent some time thinking. Here I go rook c8, just finally putting the rook where it belongs on the c file. He goes bishop e2, pressuring my knight, and here, I play knight c4, which it is it is a tough decision to make. I had two options which I calculated, which were the obvious g6, which I ended up not playing. I mean, this position looks absolutely miserable. He will probably reroute a knight to g3. That's what I thought he was gonna do, and after knight g3, there's no real way for me to protect the h5 pawn. Once he takes the h5 pawn, he has the f6 square, and his pawns start rolling down the board, and I thought that I don't get any type of counterplay here. I thought that I was just gonna get slowly murdered on the king side, so I tried to be a little bit more creative with knight c4, and I realized that after bishop takes on c4, which because I was attacking his queen, after bishop takes on c4, rook takes on c4, he has queen e2, which I saw double attacking the rook and the knight. But here my idea was to sacrifice the exchange with rook takes on c3. If my opponent takes here on h5, I'm fine. I can just drop the rook back. I can double on the c file, and I think that here I'm doing fine. But of course, my opponent just simply takes the exchange, and now I play knight f4. And my idea was, okay, I sacrificed the exchange, but at least I get some dynamic compensation because his king will be weak, and maybe in the future I can create some threats, and I'll try to create counterplay. But here knight f4 apparently is not good. I should have played the more counterintuitive and slow g6. But yeah, I wanted to be more active, and I played knight f4. But here after queen d2, this knight doesn't really have a good square to go. If I go back to g6, I get it by h5, knight e5, f4, something like that. It's looks not so good. Yeah, I don't want to go back to h5, although that's the best move. I just decided to play e5. And the problem here is that after knight b3, this pawn is weak and there's no real way to defend it. But I played d5, sacrificing this pawn, and the idea was to infiltrate with the queen to a3 now. And I mean, it looks scary. At least for me, it looks scary for white, because the queen is here really close to the king. And I don't know, maybe in the future I can create some counterplay. My opponent just brings the last piece into the game, the rook on h1 to e1. Here I play bishop g4, attacking this rook, and my opponent just takes the pawn on e5. And here I played bishop takes on d1, and there's a little trick here, which I saw that I had. Here the trick is that if my opponent takes on f4, maybe I'm able to actually get a draw after bishop takes on c2. And now the problem is that my opponent has to take here on c2, and I get this pawn on a2, and after king c1, I can take on b3, and here, you know, material is equal, his king is very, very exposed, and I probably can create chances to draw this game here. But my opponent, being a really strong player, he didn't fall for the trap, he just took on d1, and now I don't have anything. I'm just down 2 pawns. So yeah, my opponent just gave back the exchange, but he's up to pawn, so yeah, he's benefiting, and this pawn is very, very, very strong, just rolling down the board, and yeah, my rook is still super passive here. My queen looks menacing here on a3, but it's, you know, the threat is stronger than the execution. I mean, this looks threatening, but actually his king is completely safe because the queen alone can't do much damage. So yeah, here I just play knight g6. And yeah, the rest of the game was not very interesting. I was still trying to find tricks like knight c6. You know, the pawn is pinned. But here actually there's a very simple refutation which just killed the game immediately, which is queen c1 by my opponent. Very, very, very good practical move, because now the knight is hanging, the queen is attacked, and yeah, I have to trade queens, and the rest was pretty much just a matter of technique by my opponent. I just played some moves trying to do something. I didn't really want to resign, I wanted to keep playing. And yeah, in a few moves, my opponent just completely crushed me here. There's not much I can do. I resigned here. 96 is coming. If I go king f8, 96 check. If I go king e8, my opponent has rook e4 check, and now it doesn't really matter. Whatever I go, there's 96 check, and yeah, it's tough, you know. I'm just lost. So yeah, this was the game against the 2400. I mean, it was, wow, I got completely punished for not knowing a specific line. It's crazy. Like, normally I say like openings don't matter at all in my level or even a bit above, but when you get to international master, grandmaster, I mean, yeah, the openings do matter quite a lot, because it only takes like a small mistake, I would say, and you're just completely lost. And yeah, he just punished me really well, and yeah, it was a very clean game by my opponent. So yeah, I actually ended up talking a lot with him after the game, which was very nice of him to you know, talk with me. I, you know, asked for some advice in general, and we talked about the game. And yeah, I got absolutely shocked when he actually knew what chessable course I was following. And yeah, that's like insane. I mean, it was a very, very good experience, and I hope I can in the future play again against like a 2400 IM or even a GM in the future. Who knows? So yeah, it was kind of a long video with a lot of variations. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys for the next game. Bye bye.